Sad to say, I was around for all of those groups. It kind of dates me a little bit, but that's the way it is. Well, we're speaking about idolatry. When you're speaking about idolatry, you got to bring up money. Talking about little gods. And we have to mention money because we know that in our culture today, the greed, and we've all become aware, especially since the crash, of how much our country is really hooked into this greed and consumption. And the stock market, when it crashed a couple years ago, we realized that there's some people that just do anything for money. And that money is a god of so many of us here in America. Now, this is really just an easy idol to see. Some of these things are difficult, but this is an easy one. I mean, that guy that runs the red light in his, $60,000 car that's talking on his phone, and he just runs the red light, and he's probably going to make, $1 million deal with somebody and really, ruin somebody's life. Well, he's definitely worshiping that idol, we think. And that lady that's at the spa that goes there every Friday to get pampered and has her little toy dog with her, and she's got to go home, get ready to go to the club on Friday night. We say, oh, well, definitely. That's the kind of people that obviously are, hooked on money, and that's the way it looks. It's strange. In America, nobody wants to admit that they are wealthy in America. Only 2% of Americans will say that they are in the upper class. Only 2%. 85% of us say we're middle class. That's what everybody thinks. We all think that we're in the middle class. And we all know somebody that's greedy, don't we? But we're not. No. And with that, we begin to see the difficulty of this subject. I mean, there's something about greed, something about the love of money that prevents us from seeing it in ourselves. Almost no one, except maybe the most crass and callous person, would say, yeah, I love money, I'm addicted to it. No, we just can't see this in ourselves. And that's probably because we associate with people of about the same income level that we are. Those are the people that we run with. Those are the neighborhoods in which we live. Everyone makes about the same income, so we look at him and we say, well, he got a new TV, so mine's okay. They built a room on their house, so mine's okay. They took this exotic vacation, so my exotic vacation, I'm all right. I'm not, misusing money. We compare ourselves to other people in our social class and in our economic circles, and we can't discern if we're following that false god, even when we are. I've had so many people come into my office through the years and sit on the other side of the desk and say, Pastor, I need your help. My marriage is going south. Or, Pastor, I need your help. I've got problems with my kids. Or, I've got problems with an addiction or all these different things. But, I'm depressed. Never had a person come in my office and say, Pastor, can you help me? I just love money too much. Can you help me? I think I'm spending too much money on myself. It just doesn't happen. And it's because we have this blindness in this area. So I want us to start with the assumption that we are blind to this and that we may have a problem with it. We live in the midst of a culture where money and wealth have taken the place of God. I mean, the culture worships the rich and the famous, don't we? We're told that we should want to be like them. We're told that they have it made. We're told over and over that if we have more things and that if we will consume more, that we will be happier and more satisfied. And of course, we could go on and on here. The commercials that we see all try to sell us on these things, that these things are what's missing in our lives. And then we will finally be someone when we have these things. And remember the Beatitudes that Jesus gave? Blessed are they. There's 9 things that he gives there in Matthew and Luke. And those are pretty famous things. And I was thinking that if we would rewrite the Beatitudes for our culture right now on what's trying to be sold to us, they'd go, some of these things would be in the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who fly to luxury vacation spots on tropical islands where they lie in chaste lounge chairs the only two people on a perfect white sand beach, for they shall be satisfied. Where is that beach? That beach doesn't exist, does it? Blessed are those who drink much beer. That's what we're told. For they shall be surrounded by carefree, football-watching buddies that are the best of friends and young ladies that hang on their shoulders while they're watching the game. Blessed are those who drink more beer, because they shall be satisfied. Blessed are those who have the latest smartphones, for they can just gaze at their screen with the swirling colors and instantly buy tickets and walk into anything that they want to do. It just opens up life for you if you have one of these smartphones. Blessed are they. Blessed are those who have outstanding children, For he says, verily I say to you, highly blessed are those who have that golden lab, bounding along in slow motion, playing with the kids in the park, for they shall be the envy of real families everywhere, and they shall be satisfied. We know that's not reality, don't we? Money or possessions are not, of course, the means to blessingness, and we know that, and that we would acknowledge, and we would acknowledge that American culture is becoming more and more materialistic, and, none of us see that changing, do we? We just accept it. That's just the way it's going to be. But still, the worship of money and things is not my problem, because how I live is not in excess compared to them. See, they are in excess, not me. And that's pretty much our attitude. Jesus talked about money more than any other topic. Did you know that? He said more about money than he said about eternal life. He said more about money than what he said about hell. Money is his number one topic. More verses dedicated to money than any other one subject in all of the Gospels. And we think it's someone else's problem. It's so dangerous. Can't see it in ourselves. And with the 9 blesseds that Jesus gave that day, there's a passage, you're familiar with it, I think, Matthew 6:19-21, where he talks about treasures. He says, don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven where moths and rust cannot destroy and thieves do not break in and steal. Where your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. The first part of this passage is very practical. He says, don't trust in things. They're fading away. They're temporary. We go, yeah, we know that. He says, make heaven. He says, or make God your ultimate savings account. Put your investment there. Invest your life with God, because in the end, everything else you're going to lose. We know that. Doesn't mean we live like that, but we know that, okay? Steve Jobs, founder and CEO of Apple, a couple years ago, he came up with some kind of a disease. I never did hear exactly what it was. There were all kinds of guesses about he had some kind of bad cancer or something. He started losing a lot of weight. And he said this. He said, remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Well, that's reality. It's kind of a morbid thought to carry with you all day, but it's true, isn't it? We all know that. We know that placing our ultimate trust in anything or anyone other than God is just really plain stupid. Just isn't going to work for long, but doesn't stop us from doing it. But listen to this last line from Jesus. He says, wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will be. Jesus says that our treasure, our material possessions, our house, our car, our 401k, our mutual funds, our nest egg, our college kids fund, those very important but temporary things of this world are going to determine where our heart's desires are. Who we really are. Jesus says, this may look as if it's about money and material things, but really, friend, he says, It's about your heart. It's about your core. It's about who you really are, the ultimate reason for life. We can in all confidence say that money is extremely dangerous. And when I say money, I don't just mean, dollar bills and $100 bills. I mean possessions and things that we trust in, things that we can control. They're dangerous because they imitate a close relationship with God is what they do. The things make us feel important. Things give us identity. Things make us feel loved. Acquiring things gives us purpose, gives us meaning. Neurologists scanned the brains of people of faith as they recalled and re-experienced the times that they felt close to God, either in prayer or worship. They exposed the same people to some traditional images of stained glass and incense, as some of them were very liturgical, and icons, other religious images that they identified with God. And they had this specific area in the brain called the caudate nucleus, and it lit up when they recalled their religious experiences or saw these images. And researchers thought that they had found this God spot in the human being. You may have seen some articles about it. It came out about 6 months ago. Gets a little bit more interesting. The neurologists then tested another group, but this time they exposed them to some very expensive material possessions. When they showed images of these desirable, very cool products, the exact same place in their brains lit up as this God spot. And the neuroscientists discovered that people who bought certain items experienced the same sensations as those who had deep religious experiences. Now, isn't that strange? Some of us Christians would like to say, no, that shouldn't be like that. We want a religious experience to be unique. And yet what they're finding, at least now, it appears as if there's a place in us that lights up. And possessions can imitate the same thing that an experience with God does. That's troubling to me. It's very insightful. But I knew buying shoes was a religious experience. We all knew that, right? Buying shoes is a religious experience. Buying some kind of a gadget, isn't that a religious experience? Or a new car? I mean, wouldn't it be neat if they could get an MRI down in Rupp Arena? Okay, down the student section and slide one of those kids in there. I bet his brain's just lighting up. That God spot's about this big, because there's just a whole lot of satisfaction that's going on. And that's the problem. Little gods like money, they trip a switch in us, something in us. They fake a blessed experience. And our hearts, our ultimate reality will be, Jesus says, where our treasure is. Now, I want you to remember that. We're going to come back to it a little bit later, but I want to just briefly look at a real life event in the life of Jesus, a man named Zacchaeus. Scott didn't know it. He was singing they were rapping Little Zacchaeus. Remember earlier as you guys were warming up? Yeah, you did a rap to Little Zacchaeus. We might do that no, I'm not going to do that. This is really a most remarkable story. We all learned this in vacation Bible school and Sunday school. But let's look at it a little differently. Luke 19, 1-2. Jesus entered Jericho, made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. Zacchaeus was a tax collector. That doesn't mean he was a CPA, doesn't mean he worked for the IRS. What it means is he was a despised man by the Jews, because tax collectors were people who were working for Rome. Rome occupied Judea, and they would hire these Jewish people in order to serve as their agents. They had all the power of the military behind him. He could extort people. He could say, I want you to give me so much money, and then the extra he got to keep. He didn't have to turn it into the governor. So they ended up being very rich people, and the Jews hated these guys because they had sold out to their occupiers, to Rome, and they more or less were just kind of like, a mafia-type figure that extorted money from everybody. And he had been a Jew by birth, but now he's a tax collector, and he's the chief tax collector. That means that he's got guys that work underneath him. He didn't even have to see these other people. He just takes in the money. That's all he does. Later on, it says in verse 7 that he was called the sinner, the notorious sinner. Everybody knew who he was. Extremely wealthy. Had no community, no friends. He would not be admitted to their synagogues. Nobody's going to worship with him. Nobody's going to eat with him. A total outcast among the Jews. And we wonder, well, why would any man do this? The money is why. That's why he does it. Why would he choose to be a tax collector? Well, a very, very rich man. Maybe Zacchaeus had said sometime, and I'll hold up my hand to be convicted of this. Maybe he had said sometimes, well, it's just a job. This is what I do. Or how about this one, guys and ladies? It's business. You ever said that? You ever used that phrase? Well, it's business. It's not personal. This is business. Remember, that was a line used over and over in The Godfather right before they snuffed somebody out. It's not personal. Remember, it's business. Have you ever used that line? I've used that line before. When those words come out of your mouth and you say, well, this is business, alarm should go off that I'm probably leaving the moral code of God, and I'm walking over here and I'm worshiping something else. Maybe that's why. Anyway, verse 3, it says, he tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. This is the part we love, the wee little man part, climbing up the tree. Think about this for a minute. Zacchaeus is short. He can't get in the front of the line. He can't get in the front of the line to see Jesus because nobody's going to let him in. They all hate him. He's got to be in the back. So what he does is he climbs a fig tree. And we think, well, that's resourceful. He's very resourceful. No, what's going on here is men didn't climb trees back then to get a nice vantage point in a parade. And in that culture, dignity and decorum, extremely important. So you've got a very rich man. You've got Donald Trump climbing a tree, to see somebody as they come by. And this shows you what's going on in his heart. His money's not been enough. We realize that something's going on in Zacchaeus. Jesus knows that. Verse 5, we continue on. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus, and he called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, "Quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today." Zacchaeus quickly climbed down, took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. "He has gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner," they grumbled. Now, Jesus looks past everyone else that's there that day. And of all the good, moral, religious people that have lined up to receive him in Jericho, he sees this one notorious sinner that's climbed up this tree, and Jesus picks him for a dinner companion. And this just isn't a power lunch. To eat with someone else is a very intimate relationship for the Jews. They don't eat with sinners. He's a notorious sinner. Jesus chooses to go to his house and eat with him. It's scandalous, is what it is. A good Jew wouldn't eat with a tax collector. And Zacchaeus, though, didn't choose Jesus. Jesus chose Zacchaeus, and he did for a good reason. Verse 8, "Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, 'I will give half my wealth to the poor, Lord, and if I have cheated people on their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much.' And Jesus responded, 'Salvation has come to this home today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham, for the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost.'" Zacchaeus wants to follow Christ. He knows that if he's going to do that, he's got to get rid of this god that he's had, this money god that he's had. He knew that he was following a false god. So he goes way beyond what's required, whether, the 10% is the tithe. He doesn't give 10% to the poor. He gives half of his wealth, 50%, to the poor. The law said that if you had cheated someone, you were to make restitution with 20%. He doesn't give 20%. It's more like 300% interest that he gives back, 4 times what he has cheated them. Now that's a man that's changed. There's a different God that's on the throne here in Zacchaeus that day, you see. And he's not doing that to earn salvation. This is a result of salvation. Jesus chose him, and now he's chosen to serve one God, the real God, instead of the little fake God of greed and money. And Jesus had replaced the little God. Now here's something we need to learn. False gods can't be removed. They can only be replaced, see. It's not about just getting rid of all this stuff, but you have to put something else in there. Something's going to be on the throne. We're all going to love something. Every person. We're going to trust someone. We're going to love and follow someone. We're going to have a God, even if we don't believe in a God. You're going to treat something like a God. It might be your intellect. It might be the scientific method. I know all kinds of people who follow the scientific method as if it is everything. Okay? Treat it like it's a God. Might be America. Might be your family. But there's going to be something that gives you meaning and purpose and is the center of your life. And we do not identify and destroy our false gods, but rather we replace them with the genuine and only true God, the creator of the universe, the one who revealed himself to us in the person of Jesus of Nazareth. We can't remove it. We can replace it. Now, money is not really what's going on here. Get this far to tell you this. Money is kind of a surface idol. But below the surface of money, there's some other things that really look a lot like money. There's some layers to this. Behind the money is control. See, for some people, wealth means that they are in control, and that's true. The more money you have, you can tell some people what to do. You can go where you want to go. You can do some things that you want to do for a while. The problem is, eventually, you lose control. We all lose control eventually, you see. And for some, money gives them a feeling of approval. I mean, we become what we own. This is our identity. Identify with these possessions. Who I am will look at my house, look at my job, look at my money. This is who I am. Feel people approve of them because they have what they have. I guess probably the most bare form, this is the teenager who will not go to school unless he or she has those $150 jeans. You know, and those $150 jeans, we probably, if you've raised teenagers, you've been through this, probably there's something, I must have this one thing because I'm nobody if I don't have it. Everybody else has got it, right? You know what I mean? And then for others, money is security. For those who have really the security as their God, they don't spend much money. They like to store it away. The future is secure because they have money. Of course, we know that's not true as well. Either no amount of wealth can really make our future. We think it can, but it really can't. Each of those areas, control, approval, security, can only be met by the living God. He's the only one that can sit on that throne. And he walks through our town and he sees who we are. And he says, I'd really like to go home with you today. I really would. Would you let me be your God? And we say, well, I might have a little God money or money God stashed over there, but, you know, I don't use it much and I'm not really attached to it much. And it's not really much of a control in my life. It's no big thing. I worry about the future a little bit, and I'm a little anxious about some things. And I just, I want to feel good about myself. And, Lord, I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to try to do better. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to make some reforms is what I'm going to do in your life. And he says, no, that's not what I'm asking you to do. I want you to take me onto that place. I want you to put me on that throne. You see, it's not about just tweaking some things in your life or giving a few things away, but it's about me being the most important thing. Listen to these words. 2 Corinthians 8:9. Paul says, "You know the generous grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. Though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor, so that by his poverty he could make you rich." I love that last line. Are you all rich? Do you feel rich today? I have this new little thing that I do out in public that drives Nina and my wife wild. Okay, which is part of my life purpose, is to irritate her. Not really. But anyway, Nina, I'm going to tell it. We'll be at a restaurant or someplace, or maybe we're buying something, and I've noticed that sometimes in our culture there are some people, I'm being sarcastic here, sarcastic alarm, who like to show their wealth to other people. And you know, really, that they must be rich if they can do that. So a waitress will ask, do you want appetizers? And I say, oh yeah, bring us all the appetizers. Because we are so rich. We are really, did I tell you that we were rich? We can afford anything you've got here, And desserts, no, we can't eat them, but just bring us all the desserts and we'll take them all home with us because we're rich is what we are. Do you feel rich today? They got a new commercial on TV with the really tough guys got the little toy dogs because they feel rich, or the lady that's trying to get into the Jag and it's not her car, but she feels so rich because she saved some money someplace. Do you feel rich in Christ today? I mean, really, stop and think about this. This is what he says. This is where our wealth is supposed to come from. It's from the richness of Jesus Christ, the generosity of God as he extends grace to us. He has chosen you as who he's chosen. Now, you're rich, You may not look like it from the outside, but on the inside of you, you are so stinking rich and wealthy with the riches of God. Now, let's ask ourselves some questions about this little God to see if we have been trusting and following the false god of money and wealth. Maybe you haven't been paying much attention because you think, well, I haven't got any money, so this surely isn't about me. Listen, I know about as many people who are poor, who worship money, as those who are rich. That worship money has nothing to do with how much money you have. It's what the importance of it is in your life. So here's 3 questions for you. Okay, I try to do this every week just to stimulate some thought. Number 1, when faced with emotional problems, if you got a disappointment or a failure, relationship issue, do you go out and buy things? Okay, got a bad day, had a bad week, do you have to go to the mall to buy some things? If you do, then this might be controlling you a whole lot more than what you think it is. Number 2, is your image of the future based on your savings and your income? Wow, this really gets to me. What you see for your future, is it based on what you've got in the bank and your savings and your income? Or number 3, do you give people things to get them to do what you want them to do? Do you try to buy people? We can do that with our children, Now, if you'll be good, I'll give you this, all right? If you do this and that, I'm going to give you this prize. What we're doing is training them that we're going to control them by giving them things. Again, what you've done is when we do that, we put money or possessions in that place that's for God alone. And again, it's not about kicking them out. It's about putting Christ in. So let's take a moment here in prayer.